Happy New Year, everybody. This is Alex Yao with Remax Select Properties.
And Chris Cornborough from Forefront Mortgages. Happy 2021.
All right, this is your market update for January 2021. So Chris, how was the holiday season in regards to the mortgage world?
It was good. It was busy. Typical, kind of some offers on Christmas Eve.
Oh yeah.
You know, no open houses on Christmas.
Right.
I think so. But it's been a steady start to the year so far. And
good.
Rates are good. People are back out wanting pre-approvals, etc.
Are people starting to come out and to 100%. Buy and sell again?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think especially people that got maybe frustrated with the market last year, with the activity, and maybe they didn't want to go out. It just seems like there's a few folks that we touched base with, like maybe in the spring last year, that are reconnecting with us this spring, which would be good.
So are people more buying as a first home, or selling and buying and moving?
More first-time home buyers for sure. Although a couple of rental purchases too, which is good. I think people taking advantage of like the pricing in downtown, especially.
Right.
I've seen some people poke around for deals.
Yeah, downtown's starting to move too.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. It's good.
Okay.
So,
well, stats-wise, Vancouver East and Vancouver West over the period of December 2020, Vancouver East single houses went up 0.8%. Vancouver West went up 1.3%. Townhomes, you're looking at Vancouver East going down 0.4%. Vancouver West going down 0.8%. Condos, Vancouver East went up 1.6% and Vancouver West went down 0.6%. I mean, the numbers have been fluctuating over the last year or so, but overall, it was an upward trend over in 2020. Now, interestingly, over the last 1 year, condos, Vancouver East went up 4.1, Vancouver West went down 0.2, so about balanced. Townhomes, Vancouver East went up 1.3, Vancouver West went down 0.5%, so a little up. Whereas single detached homes over the last year, Vancouver East went up 10.2%, Vancouver West went up 7.5%. So we're seeing a trend of people kind of moving up to bigger spaces, as we've been discussing over the last.
So from condos to townhomes?
From
townhomes to houses.
Exactly.
Well.
So it's just people needing bigger spaces, especially during the pandemic, knowing that they're working from home and kids and so forth. And we've been talking about supply over the last year, and that kind of dictates where the market's been going. So in December, we saw a little bit of a surge, even though the activity kind of died down a little bit. Funny enough, downtown supply went down 30%. Vancouver West houses supply went down 27%. Townhomes and condos went down 33%. On the Vancouver East side, houses went down 31% and condos went down 36%.
So is that lack of new product, or is that people taking houses like
I think it's
off
a combination
the market,
of both. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the holiday season. No one really wants to show during Christmas and clean up and so forth, right? And everyone's staying home.
Yeah,
over the holiday season this year.
So probably pick back up in the new year, I would say.
I'm seeing that my phone's starting to ring a lot more now, and people are getting into the groove of kind of wanting to sell, wanting to move, wanting to buy. So I think the activity will pick up a little earlier this year than over the last few years. But overall, I think Vancouver East has a lot of good potential, whether it's for sellers or buyers. I mean, buyers, price-wise, it's obviously lower than Vancouver West side. But because of that, the market's bigger. So the people that are selling on the Vancouver East side will be able to take advantage of that, essentially.
Got you.
Yeah.
So going from east to west, if you're an existing homeowner, would be wise?
I think that jump is still quite high. I mean, a comparable house on the Vancouver East side, you're looking at, let's say hypothetically 1.8, 1.5 to 1.8. Whereas a similar house on the Vancouver West side, you're looking at 2.5 to 3.
Got you. So it's a pretty significant.
Even a little bit over that.
Delta,
So I mean, the land on the west side is a lot more expensive. So I mean, I think that balance is still quite a bit off for people to make that jump right now. But at Vancouver East, I can see a lot more activity coming this year as well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we're in Vancouver East. I love the neighborhood.
yeah,
It's great.
yeah. So, anyways, now I wanted to discuss something and pick your brain a little bit. I've been, at least over the last year, I've been getting some inquiries in regards to people actually wanting to move to bigger spaces, just like how the trend was going, right? And a lot of them, they purchased pre-2015, where the market was more balanced, more predictable, and the conventional way of buying was, you get an accepted offer, and then you go to the bank to get a mortgage approval. Once that's done, you do your inspection, this and that, and you remove subjects and firm up the deal. So a lot of them are just coming back to the market now to find a bigger space, whether their family is expanding or needing to work from home. And they don't quite know what the word pre-approval means.
Okay.
So essentially the difference between a pre-approval and a full mortgage approval. So a lot of them have been asking me what the difference is, and if I'm approved for $1 million, does that mean that I can buy anything that's listed under $1 million? So, and I had to explain to them that that's not quite the case. So might as well get the information directly from you, the expert.
Yeah, totally. Well, the pre-approval, the difference with the pre-approval versus approval is a pre-approval is basically everything. So we do credit check, we get your income, we take a look at what you're going to be buying, and we say in our professional opinion, this is going to work for the lenders. And we have a broad list of lenders. So we sort of say, this will work for like most lenders, or this is going to work for a couple specific lenders, or even a specific lender, for example, right? An approval is when we've sent all your documents, including the purchase details, so the purchase agreement, MLS listing, the minutes, if it's a condo, the Form B, all that stuff, into the lender, and they've looked at it all and said, we're good, 100%. Here's the piece of paper. So a pre-approval is halfway to an approval, but just because you're pre-approved, we do get the question, can I just go in and buy anything, or should I put subjects in? Yeah, you probably should, because you might buy in a building where there's a total disaster waiting to happen in the strata minutes, leaky condo, special assessment, insurance premium issue, for example. So you don't want to go in blindly. The pre-approval is more of like a roadmap to like getting you to where you need to go, but you still do want to have a subject or two. And we don't need long for subjects. We can get subjects taken off in a couple days or even a day if we need to, but you just want to make sure, because we only know so much. We know your finances, we know your credit, we know your budget, but we don't know the property specific details. So if there's an issue with the property, for example, or the lender doesn't like the property, or you don't like the property, not having subjects is obviously going to be problematic, right? So that's really the difference. A lot of folks, because you can't go to the bank anymore, they'll do like an online pre-approval, just sort of get some numbers. Those are a waste of time. They're useless. They're not going to do you any good, because a computer is not going to check your credit. They're not going to know the difference. If you've got, for example, if you're self-employed and you make $100,000 and you put $100,000 into the pre-approval website, it's going to think that's your income. But maybe you've got write-offs. Maybe you actually deduct a lot from that income. So your actual take-home income might be $60,000. The computer doesn't know the nuances of that. So if you're doing an online pre-approval that's not involving a human being, I'd be very skeptical of relying on that to go and spend your time looking for a home. And certainly don't rely on those to go in like with a subject-free offer. A lot of the times the online mortgage calculators at most of the banks, and even some of the ones online, they're really incorrect. And so it'll give you a number saying you can buy for much lower or higher than you actually can afford. So talk to a mortgage broker. Obviously we can run the numbers for you. We know what we're doing. We'll do it live. We can have a Zoom chat about like the specifics, and you've got a pretty good sense from there as to what your confidence level can be when you're going to buy a place.
Yeah, and right? It's a free process. It's good to know.
It takes 15-20 minutes. It's a great investment for your time, and certainly knowing things like rates, options, prepayment. These are things that you can't really do online, and a lot of times if you're dealing with like the bank, that person might have just opened a savings account. They've got your mortgage pre-approval application next, and then they're going to do an RSP. Like, they're not a specialist in mortgages. And with the market the way that it is, you need to have a team of professionals on your side. It's super important. And we all work for free, right? There's no cost or obligation to it. Just a bit of time investment, but it's time well spent and time definitely worth it.
And I completely agree.
Yeah.
You know, when I have buyers that are looking in the market, I always want to know what they're pre-approved for.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste their time looking at things that either they can't afford or it's way below what they want.
Totally.
And it's always good to know kind of a ballpark of what they can afford.
Absolutely.
And from what I understand, essentially, borrowing money for a property, there are two things to look at. One is how much the buyers can afford, and secondly is whether that property is worth that much, right? So the pre-approval, from what I understand, is essentially the first half, is what they can afford. So just because I can afford $1 million doesn't mean that what I'm buying right now today is actually worth $1 million. Let's say it's worth $800,000, but then multiple offers drives it up to $1 million. Doesn't mean that if I make that $1 million offer, I'm going to get the lender to give me the amount of money I need to complete on it.
Exactly. That's fair enough.
Yeah, so, but it's always a good idea to know kind of what your borrowing power is.
Absolutely.
And to see exactly where you stand and what sub-market to look for, and it's always easier and more efficient to look in that market. You're not overstretching and you're not, under-delivering either. So I think that's always the first step. And I think in this year, again, that will play a big part into kind of what the buyers do.
Totally.
And what they can actually take advantage of.
The pre-approval, kind of segueing into that as well, is if you've got a property, you want to sell it, we get the question, should I sell or buy and sell first?
Right.
So the part of that pre-approval process can be a couple different scenarios.
Right.
What if I need to make a quick offer on something, or what if I have already sold, what happens with your existing mortgage, things of that nature, where you can't really do that over the phone or, on a website. It's got to be more of like a in-depth analysis and a bit more of a lengthy conversation for those nuances of, if you've owned a place in 2015, like you were saying, your mortgage is probably coming up for renewal. So, what do you do in those circumstances as well, right? There's a lot of important questions other than the fact of, what's the interest rate or what's my payment? There's way more to it than just those two questions.
Whether you can port a mortgage or whether there's penalties.
Exactly. Should you? Could you? Yeah, absolutely.
So there's actually a lot more than what people know, or what people think they know. In regards to the pre-approvals and mortgages and so forth, especially if you're moving from a property to another property.
Exactly.
There's a lot of kind of transferring of funds and transferring of fees and so forth.
Totally.
So it's best to speak to a mortgage broker. Always be prepared. That's what we always try to suggest. And more information is always better than not enough.
Absolutely.
Okay? So thank you again
for
Alex. Doing this. And Happy New Year, everybody. We hope to see you in the coming year. Have a good day.